Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about lowered expectations. That's right, lowered expectations. Well, or higher expectations. I guess it depends on who you are and what your situation is. Hold on, one of the when it comes to your expectations as to what Mexico is going to be like, what life in Mexico is going to be like, and for some of you guys, I mean, you already know you can't get out here fast enough. For some of you guys, you come out here sight unseen, and then, well, you're very disappointed by how things are out here. And, again, some of you guys are pleasantly surprised by how amazing they are. Some of you guys are, very disappointed by how not amazing they are to you. Again, it all depends on you, the individual out there. But this is why I make videos like this, and I do tours of, basically the city, all kinds of areas. In fact, we are right by a periférico, because we just came from Canacin, which is on the other side of that highway. And we just got off the, we just finished an episode, when we were touring Canacin. If you want to know what it looks like over there, what it feels like over there, and check out the adventure of me, basically giving you a tour of that area. Please check out the video at the end of this one. I'm going to link it down below so you guys can catch that if you're interested. But long story short, in today's video, we're on our way back home. Again, we've been on the bike all day. This is episode number 3 that we filmed today, and we're on our way back close to El Centro, and we're going to be talking about, again, why is it that some people come out to Mexico and they succeed and they have an amazing life, and others not so much? What is it? What is that secret formula? Is there a secret formula? Or is it all, again, all about expectations and all about the individual? And well, if you watch this channel long enough, you probably already know what I have to say about these things. But either way, it doesn't matter. Enough of me just standing around here in a middle of a neighborhood here with traffic, coming at me from all kinds of directions. It's time for me to get on the bike because it's time for us to head back home. It's been a long day. We've filmed a lot of episodes and, we already know we hop on the bike and we bike and talk. So without further ado, let's get going before it starts raining again. We already got caught under the rain a couple times today. No more of that. All right, so let's get home before it really starts to pour. All right, guys, let's head out of here. Man, this is a nice little neighborhood here that I found. Never been through this area here. So today we're just gonna see if we can stick to the side roads. The last couple episodes we were kind of forced to get on the main roads, and it's a lot of traffic and noise and all that stuff. So today, in this video, let's see if we can just stick to, the roads, the regular, neighborhood roads, and see if we can make our way back close to home. Let's go for it. So, all right, guys. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about, lowering your expectations out there, or not, or, maybe raising those expectations. It really just depends on who you are. But I think for a lot of people out there, the main problem that a lot of people have is the fact that, they come out to Mexico, or their whole idea of, coming out to Mexico, moving to Mexico, is basically almost like a pipe dream, because, they have all these high expectations as to what they're going to be expecting, once they move out here, out of life out here, without really considering, all these other factors that will determine, whether or not they're really going to be successful out here or not, whether they're going to enjoy their time out here or not, and so on and so forth. A lot of it just goes down to the whole, expectations aspect of it, because, for a lot of people, the reality is that, all right, hold on a second. Let me see if I can, make sure I'm heading the right way here. But yeah, the thing is, it's like, for a lot of people, for example, I came out here with very little expectations. I don't even know what to expect. I basically just wanted, a place, to call home, a place where I could just lay low while I worked on, my YouTube videos, my life, my career, trying to get all that stuff back together. And, being out here in Mexico helped me, help provide that for me. That's just the true reality of it. I've talked to you guys about it many times before as to, the real reasons why I came out here. And well, the reasons I stay out here, a lot of it really has to do, with the fact that, out here, I get to really just live my simple life and enjoy an amazing life, not expecting too much, all right, out of society, not expecting too much, from anything out here. The reality is that, the fact that I get to be left alone and I get to just live my life, that's beyond enough for me. That's already met, and exceeded my expectations, to tell you the truth. But, for a lot of people, they come out to Mexico and they're expecting a lot more. They want a lot more. Right now they might be struggling in the USA. And then they come out here and all of a sudden they're struggling out here as well. And the reality is because they themselves don't change, much about their life. They want to continue living that same exact life, or they want to even live a better life than they ever lived, back in the USA. And the reality is that, that's going to cost money. That's going to cost, things, besides money that a lot of people just, might not be willing to sacrifice or pay for. One of the things that allows me, so much economic freedom, for example, is the fact that I never, ever, found it like I needed to have a car, once I moved out here. When I moved out here, all I had was my Chevrolet legs, to just be honest with you. I was walking around everywhere. I didn't have much of a choice. Of course, I made the most of it. I gave you a lot of walking tours of El Centro and of the city, wherever I was, because, I was always with the camera. Eventually, I got a bicycle and I was able to, show you a little bit more. And now here I am with my electric bike. And, I'm going, further than some of you guys have gone, even with your own car out here. And so the reality is that, at least for me, I came out here with, just a lowered expectations. I wasn't expecting much out of Mexico. I really, really did believe a lot of the propaganda. Again, I came out here over 7 years ago, before it was a fashionable thing to come out here. And I didn't know much about living out here. I didn't know much about the culture or life out here. And I thought it was a third world country and it was dangerous. And, all the same misconceptions that a lot of you guys believe, or, because of, just what you've been told. Only to quickly realize, when I was here that it couldn't be any further from the truth. And so my expectations were blown out of the water. Now, for some of you guys, you guys also thought, think those things. And then you think that Mexico's extremely cheap and extremely affordable, meaning that you can live out here like a millionaire with just a few pesos. But the reality is that that's not the truth. You know what I mean? The truth is if you want to live really nice, you want to have a really expensive house, you want to live in an expensive part of the city, you want to be going to Costco every weekend, well, you're going to have some money in your pocket. You got to be making some cash, some pesos. You got to be making some money. You got to be comfortable, whether you're making that money or you're getting it from retirement or however you're getting it. But, that's just the truth. And so, for a lot of people out there, they kind of grown up poor, grown up very frugally, you grew up, basically, just, you learn how to make ends meet. You're not too big, to have a cup of noodles for dinner and some, what's it like a grilled cheese, maybe a can of beans or whatever. Oh, you'll be fine out here. You really got nothing to worry about, really. It's for all those other people out there, that come out here and they have a mac and cheese budget, but they want to eat filet mignon every day. You know what I mean? And, obviously, for many people, it doesn't matter what part of the world you're in, everywhere's is expensive these days. Some more than others, obviously. But if you're just looking to just have a normal life and just live a normal life and just want to make sure that whatever money you got, whether it's through, your retirement, your pension, your job, online job, whatever that online job is, or real job, or, maybe you want a business out here, or whatever it is, the fact is that you don't need to be making that much money, and your expectations don't need to be, set so high. Because, well, you're not really asking for much. Really what you're asking for is just some peace, some quiet, to have a nice and comfortable life, and so on and so forth. I want to stay here on this road, but I feel like I'm not gonna. Here, let me see if I can get more, so I can show you a little bit more of the area. So we're gonna just get on the street here, but a lot of it has to do with cost of living, and for a lot of people, the cost of living out here is unmatched. Again, for me, there's no way, Jose, that I'm gonna be able to live, very comfortably and have a super nice home and be able to afford anything I want to eat and do what I want for a living, in the USA on $1,500, because again, you guys know I only make a few bucks. I don't make that much money, compared to how much people have to make in the USA, in order to survive on a daily basis. And so, out here, I can survive with much less, and not just survive, but really have an amazing, wonderful life that only you can dream. I could have only dreamt of back home. And out here, things are just more accessible. But the thing is, for other people out there that have different expectations. For example, you want to have. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I guess we're back on the highway, on the streets again. But for some of you guys that are too big, to ride the bus, for example, you don't want to. You don't want to get yourself a bicycle. You don't want to get yourself a motorcycle, electric bike. You want to live it up. You want to have a more comfortable lifestyle. Well, then, yeah, those things are going to cost more money. Again, it really just depends on you as to, what it is that you are looking for. And so, again, for some people out there, when you move to Mexico, it far exceeds your expectations. Because you're not expecting for things to be exactly the same way as they are back home. Because, for example, like when you're going to be renting a home out here, you're going to be living in a house out here. A lot of times, what determines the more affordable rent is the fact that you're not going to be living in a comfortable home, like what you might be used to back in the USA. When I first got here, and I was living in my very humble apartment, townhome or whatever you want to call it, it was very, 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 very humble. And compared to US standards, I was basically living poor. I was living like in squalor. I was living, extremely, on the lowest end of the economic spectrum. But now, fast forward to today, again, I live in a very modern home, basically, a brand new home that is on par with a lot of the new homes and new constructions in the USA, anywhere else, and anywhere else. Again, I have 3 rooms, obviously one's a bedroom, one is my office, for me to work in. Another one is Christian's studio for her to paint and do her things. We got multiple bathrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, which is more than enough, for us. We have a huge yard, a huge backyard, a huge front yard. We got a garden. We live in the centro. We live in an amazing, part of the city and in an amazing brand new home. And I'm only paying $650 for that home. And before you guys ask, I'm not showing you guys because I used to show you guys more of my neighborhood and the home I used to live in and things like that. And all that does is just bring in a lot of stalkers and a lot of you guys that don't know how to behave yourself and, just showing up to my door, showing up to my house, So anyways, that's why I don't really show you guys these days where I live. I just, tell you guys and show you guys the vicinity of where I live. Anyways, sorry about that. It's a little side note there. But the reality is that, for that same home that I'm paying $650 in right now, that same home in the USA, in many parts of the USA, it's at least, $3,000 for that home. Again, it's a big home. Something that I didn't think I was going to be able to really afford anytime soon or achieve. But I did. Again, on my humble earnings per month, I'm able to afford to rent that home. Sure, sometimes things are a little tighter than I would like them to be, but that's okay. Again, my wife is also very frugal. We live the same kind of lifestyle. And for us, it's more important, to have peace of mind, to not have to go out there and, work 60 hours a week for somebody or something that we don't want to do. All of a sudden, we cannot afford, to go out on trips or go out on date night or have fancy dinners, even at home. We cook at home a lot. Well, then we don't, Again, we make those sacrifices in order to maintain the status quo, which is our comfort, which again, to everyone is a little different. But for some people, that whole idea of the full comfort, is so many things. Like, again, it has to be everything included. It can't just be one thing or the other. For some people, they're just not satisfied with having a nice home. They want to have a nice home. They want to have a nice car. They want to be able to, go out to fancy dinners every night and so on and so forth. For us, a lot of times, I look forward to the nights when Christian doesn't want to cook, because then I can just go to the corner taco stand and just get myself dinner. I can get myself like literally 10 tacos, a Coke, dessert, the whole thing, and I'm paying less than $10. I mean, come on, that's not even enough for a Big Mac meal in the USA these days. Which, again, I don't know if you've seen me, I'm a big boy. I need more than one Big Mac. Many times I go to McDonald's and I gotta have a Big Mac, double cheeseburger, 10 nuggets, French fries, apple pie. Yeah, that's right, I eat a lot. So the fact that I get to eat that much, still, to my heart's content, and do it on a budget, whether I'm cooking at home or just getting it from the local taco stand, that means a lot to me. That's amazing. For a lot of people out there in the audience, they can't even fathom, going to the taco stand. They're looking at the tacos. I mean, the guy making the taco, and they're like, oh my God, that guy didn't wash his hands. Oh my God, that has been sitting out for 15 minutes and it's not under, the health code laws and, all these health code violations and this and that or whatever. And it's like, that's no way to go through life, guys. For those of you guys out there that love your dirty tacos, that love going to the free park, that love going to the free zoo, that love your free health care or affordable health care, affordable lifestyle. I mean, you're going to love it out here. It's just a true reality. There's no, you can't compare, to what you're going to find out here, as to, what you're going to get back home. Back home, even if you're going to the taco truck, they want to charge you like $4 per taco, or something like that. There's no such thing as a cheap, affordable meal almost anymore these days. Affordable health care, forget about it. You know what I mean? So to me, like the fact that, I get to just have health care. Obviously, if I need the best health care, imaginable, I can get it, as long as I'm willing to pay for it. But if I just need regular health care, I have it. Same thing as meals. You know what I mean? If we're on a tight budget, we're going to be doing a lot of cooking, and we're going to be doing a lot of beans and rice and eggs and things like that. If I need to make some extra money, I can just go on ahead and, get a little side gig, a little side job, whatever it is, and just make it happen. And there's just so many more, options out here where, again, for a lot of people, they'll come out here and just even me telling you all these things, that's already like almost like a nightmare. They're like, what do you mean I got to eat at the taco stand? What do you mean I got to cook at home? What do you mean I can't eat at a fancy restaurant every day? Which, again, as this city grows, as many city grows, as, the whole, Mexico, continues to get gentrified, continues to, the economy gets better, people make more money, so on and so forth. Things are getting more expensive. And if you're on a fixed income, whether you have a job or not, well, it's going to be more and more difficult for you, to make ends meet. Because again, for example, I personally have the ability to make more money. Some younger folk have the ability to make more money, and they also have the ability to sacrifice, a little bit here and there in order to, maybe, go on a trip. I'm going to save some money to go on a trip. So I'm going to, just, be frugal with my expenses. And so, so on and so forth. So for some people out there that have never really had to be frugal, with any other expenses or anything like that, well, of course, things are just going to be extremely difficult for you, a lot more difficult than the average bear, than the average person out there. That's just the truth. But for some people, it's not a big deal. For me, it's it's a privilege. The fact that I have so many options out here of how I want to spend my money, of how I want to spend my time, of what I want to do. Like, for example, me and Christian, we go out on date night just about every single weekend, outside of the fact that we might have, let's say a family event, or we might have to, have, whatever, some other thing that we got to do and we just don't have the time, to just go on a regular date night or what have you. But with that said, depending on our budget will depend on where we go. If we're celebrating and I got a few bucks in my pocket, well, then guess what? We're probably going to go to Texas Roadhouse, or we're going to go to a nice little restaurant. Again, I'm not going to break the budget. I'm not going to spend hundreds of dollars in a restaurant, but, I got more than, enough to maybe even spend 50 bucks or, dare I say $100 in a super duper special occasion, to spend it with my wife. Let's say like a birthday or, some other, event like that. But, when it comes down to just a date night, many times, first of all, we don't have to spend any money. We can go to many parks, many areas at night that are always alive, with, all kinds of food vendors, regular vendors, doing the whole kind of, whatchamacallit, like the flea market thing. And that's always fun. So we, sometimes we'll just go to the park to walk around, enjoy the sights and sounds. If we can afford it, which, we usually can. We're not that poor anymore. But back in the day when we weren't poor, when we were very, very poor, all we could afford was just to go to the park and walk around. But nowadays, hey, we can afford to, at the very least, have dinner at the park. And so, for example, we'll go to Parque Las Americas or Parque Alemán, and, we'll go and, get some elotes, some esquites, that's like corn on a cob or corn in a cup, with all the, mayonnaise and the hot sauce and all that stuff. We'll get that. That's one of my favorite things to eat. Depending on where we are, we'll go to our favorite little taco stand or get some tortas. Tortas are like sandwiches. That's what they call sandwiches out here. We'll get little sandwiches or tacos. We can also, on other parks, they have like a little bit more of an international flair. In Parque Las Americas, there's these, these Chinese couple with their kid. That they're obviously they're immigrants, are living out here, living the dream. Entrepreneurs. But they sell, out of a little food cart. They'll sell like little chicken nuggets, chicken bites, French fries, gyozas, which are little fried dumplings. They got little mochis, they got all kinds of little things. And so basically we'll go there, and so long story short, we'll be able to have a date night for like around, maybe $15, give or take. And that's including our, what are these guys doing? They all just waiting for each other. I don't think they're waiting on me because I'm all the way over here. Anyways, either way, whatever. When I always give the right away, I am not, I'd be very defensive driving, all right? Don't be aggressive. I'm aggressive, but you got to be a defensive driver, no matter what you're driving out here. You never know what they're doing behind the wheel. A lot of times they're distracted. All right, sorry. Back to what I was saying. So yeah, long story short, the reality is that, out here, we can, live a very amazing and wonderful life, very frugally. And not have to worry about breaking the bank, not worry about, where am I, going to get the money for rent? Where am I going to get the money for my light bill? So on and so forth. Again, I just got my light bill at the brand new house. I thought I was going to be paying like $250, and I was pleasantly surprised it only came out to $75 US. It's amazing, right? So it's just incredible. So I just keep getting, more and more amazed out here. My expectations keep getting, exceeded constantly out here. But for a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people will come out here and they want to live a more exuberant lifestyle, and they quickly find out that, yeah, things cost money out here, especially if you want to live a fancy lifestyle. And for some people, they quickly realize, they're not going to be able to afford to live the life that they want, and that's when they start getting severely disappointed very quickly. And it's just the truth, But at least for me personally, and I think for a lot of you guys out there, Mexico far exceeds your expectations, and you guys feel extremely blessed, to be out here just like me. And in fact, some of you guys, have already made it your home. Some of you guys have not moved out here yet, but regardless, you guys can't wait to live, that amazing life. All right, let's get in the bike lane here. See how far. Let's take it all the way to the end over here. But yeah, so hold on a second. All right. So hold on, let me pull over real quick. I want to make sure I know where I'm going here. I don't want to get too lost. But anyways, but yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like for many people out here, a lot of it has to do with your mindset. As to what kind of expectations, what are you expecting out of life out here? For me, the kindness of the people, the relaxed lifestyle, the affordability of everything, no matter what your budget, and so on and so forth. Those things, it's almost that you can't really put a price on it. You can't really even put a description on these things, And I try to, with my videos. This is why a lot of times, even though I'm just rambling about, I like to just give you a tour, of the city, of the area. Here, let's go through here real quick so I can show you. You got the kids at the park, just playing some football, some basketball, whatever. What are they doing over here? Oh yeah, we can come through here. Nice, very nice. You can just come out here, watch a baseball game like this guy, and maybe he's watching his kids. Whatever it is. Look at this. Everybody's just learning Little League, having their thing, enjoying their fun. Who mows the lawn? Somebody in the neighborhood mows the lawn. It's not the city. They're not expecting, people to, do, hola, buenos dias, and so on and so forth. So, out here normally in this area, they have like, I know this area a little bit, so this area here, they'll have like a, what you call it, like a little tianguis, which is the flea market thing. So I think Tuesdays and Fridays, they set up shop here, sometimes at night. But this whole park is filled with all kinds of vendors selling food, selling, clothes, used items, all kinds of random stuff. But today's Monday, not much going on. Monday afternoon, everyone is on their way home from work, including myself. But yeah, what I mean? That's the thing, it's like, as long as, you're willing to accept, the fact that not everything is going to be nice and manicured and perfect all the time, that there are all kinds of people living here, of all kinds of incomes, all kinds of, choices, for all kinds of things. You're going to be fine. If you have a nice attitude, a good attitude, you're not constantly complaining about everything, you'll be fine. Because the thing is that like out here, why is it that people that complain a lot don't really make it out here in Mexico? It's because the reality is that nobody cares. Everybody has a million things to complain about. It's just the true reality of it. Life is very hard out here. And when they see somebody coming from the USA, for example, or Canada, and they're just constantly complaining, constantly not happy, constantly, woe is me. They just don't understand it. They just don't understand it because to them, it's like they look at themselves and like, man, I don't even make as much as you do. I have a more humble lifestyle than you do. Whatever. I mean, come on. You've seen what the typical people live out here look like and what things look like out here. And, the reality is that, for most people, they just don't understand all that complaining. And when people that complain all the time about everything, come out here, and then they see that nobody is listening, nobody cares. That's one of the main reasons why they end up leaving. It's just the truth. I don't know what else to say. But out here, if you're willing to accept and embrace, that everybody's in that struggle together, and we're all in it together, then you'll be totally fine. You'll be able to enjoy life. No matter what your income level is, you'll be able to go to the taco stand. You'll be able to go to the regular neighborhood, poor neighborhood, working class neighborhood, to buy, whatever it is you're gonna buy, visit whoever you're gonna visit, do whatever it is you're gonna do, and not really too worried too much about it, because you're humble. And again, a lot of it has to do with your attitude, the expectations that you have of others. Again, maybe not to expect much of anybody. That would help, instead of constantly expecting everyone to be catering to you, to your every needs and desire, to be catering to your to just your how do I say this? What's the word I'm looking for? When somebody is like a big baby, but just it is what it is. But anyways, at the end of the day, living out here is, amazing. Even though it might not be for everybody, it is definitely an amazing life, that's for sure. And I think for a lot of people, everything that I'm saying, it's almost like a moot point, because you guys already know how amazing life can be out here. You probably already visited before. You probably already grew up in a Mexican neighborhood back home, or you grew up already pretty poor, frugal lifestyle, what have you. And so to you, this ain't no big thing. Again, you move out here and it's like heaven on earth, literally heaven on earth. I like to tell people, I must have died in an accident, because I'm in heaven. I feel like I'm in heaven all the time out here. And this is the truth, So, for a lot of people, like I said, a lot of the things that I'm saying is just like a moot point, because a lot of you guys, you guys already understand the true value of, life out here. And, you don't need to be sold on any of that. You're just watching my videos to get the little tour of the neighborhood. But for many people out there, the reality is that they just don't get it. They'll never get it. Because again, they're just expecting too much. They want too much. And not realizing that, that happiness really just comes from within. And, just moving to another area of the world where you'll be able to, spend a little bit more money to get more stuff is not going to make you happier. The reality is that it's how you're spending, it's how you're getting that money and how you're spending that time, more than anything else. And, for a lot of people, they understand, they get it. They get that like time is the most important thing, and the most precious thing. And, there's no replacing that. There's no substitute, for having an amazing life. And that can come with basically any income, no matter how much you're making. That's why, again, you see so many people out here that live extremely humble, extremely poor, I guess, however you want to describe it. But they're much happier than you, much happier than people that have a lot of money, a lot of resources. And again, a lot of it just is because of, how they choose to live their life and what kind of mindset they have. So, all right, guys. Well, with all that said, I think we're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna just, park it over here at the park real quick. Nice little park. Looks like a nice park out here. We got cats screaming over there. Anyways, let's just come over here and just wrap it up in the shade. All right. Oh man, what a day. What a beautiful day. What a long day. Glad that you guys have been able to join me. I filmed many episodes today, just wrapping things up with this one. Again, I really hope you guys have enjoyed, all these bike tours. Not the ones that I just filmed today, but the ones that I've been filming, throughout the years that I've been here. And again, I have a full playlist of all the bike rides that I've done, all the walks that I've done, you know, all the interviews that I've done, all the tours that I've done. I got all kinds of videos, all kinds of content on my channel. So if you're interested in checking out more, please check out the rest of the channel. Please check out all the playlists and all the videos that I link at the end of this one. And I think that's it, guys. I think we're gonna wrap it up because I'm already running on fumes and I gotta find my way back home. I don't know exactly where I am. I kind of know where I am, but I gotta find my way home. So with all that being said, guys, you already know the deal. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit the bell icon, but more importantly than anything else, please stay awesome. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.